Course 1, Introducing 21 CLD, Lesson 1, What Learning Environments are Needed in the 21st Century. Before you start the course, we thought it might be useful if we introduce the team. We've been using the 21 CLD framework for quite a number of years now with a range of educators across the world.
So the 21 CLD, it's a set of rubrics, and they were developed to enable teachers to think about designing learning environments. And the idea is that they empower students to develop key skills for living and working in the 21st century.
As part of the development of the course, we were privileged to work with a group of inspiring educators from around the globe who share their classroom practice with us and helped to bring 21 CLD to life.
And it was great to get this opportunity to develop it as an online course so that we could bring it to a wider audience.
We hope you will find this 21 CLD course useful when designing deeper learning experiences for your students. Growing up in the world of today, how do our children learn? What digital tools have they access to as they try to make sense of the world around them? Indeed, think of the digital tools you may use in your own day-to-day life. Your mobile phone, for instance. How much do you depend on that? Have these tools changed the way you live and work? How you communicate and interact with your family, your friends, your colleague? If these tools are having such an impact on how we live our lives, perhaps it is time for us as educators to consider what learning environments are needed in the 21st century. We as educators are in a unique position to influence and shape the world as we have in our care the future generations. Many governments around the world are also beginning to realise that education is central to helping society meet the changes this globally connected world presents. For as Mandela most famously said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. To begin to conceptualise what a learning environment suitable for the 21st century should be like, think about the skills required to live, learn and work in our society today. As you watch this video, what comes to mind about the society we live in today? There is an onus on society to prepare our young people to live and work in today's globally connected 21st century society. The internet in particular is playing a key role in expanding the amount of new information and knowledge that's being produced on a daily basis. For example, in the time that you're watching this, over 500,000 new email messages will have been sent. Consequently, the emphasis is not on knowing information, but being able to access it, interpret it, analyse it and evaluate it. So how do we prepare young people to live in this rapidly changing world? Many countries are already aware of this challenge and are reimagining and transforming their education systems to better prepare their young people for this new reality. Besides the information explosion, our world is facing many major challenges such as climate change, potential shortages of energy, food, water, along with ethnic tensions in many parts of the world. This ever-changing world will require our children to solve these complex problems, and unfortunately they will not be able to find the answers in a textbook or from taking a standardised test. The notion of fixed solutions or jobs for life are no longer appropriate. We need to ensure our young people become resilient, lifelong learners so they can adapt flexibly to a dynamically fast-paced world. This has implications for education systems and how teaching, learning and assessment practices are designed and developed. We need to transform our learning environments so that the emphasis is not just on students mastering content. In contrast, we should be designing learning environments and learning tasks so that students can work together to solve real-world problems. This change of role is complex and requires educational systems to engage in reform initiatives so they can prepare young people for today's 21st century society. One of the main drivers for this change is in the world of work. Technology is reducing the need for manual and routine labour, and this is leading to growing unemployment in some sectors. Today, there is a great demand for many people in society to have a range of skills, such as expert thinking and complex communication. There is also a need for people to think outside the box, be more knowledgeable about the world, be smarter about new sources of information, and have good people skills. They also need to be able to solve complex, multidisciplinary, open-ended problems, and will need to constantly engage in learning throughout their careers. Many companies today expect young people not only to have core content knowledge and be high academic achievers, but in addition to have these 21st century skills. There's a growing realisation across many countries globally that our current school systems are not fit for purpose, and we need to reimagine them for today's reality. We need to move away from a model of individuality in our school systems to one of collaborative inquiry. There is also a recognition that young people today have been born into a digital world where the internet and digital tools are all pervasive. Young people use these tools in their daily lives outside school, but there's often limited use within schools. We urgently need to develop supportive eco-cultures of learning across our school systems, where teachers design learning tasks so that students can use digital tools to engage in meaningful learning activities while also enabling 21st century skills development. So reflecting on the video you just watched and thinking about the skills required to learn, live and work in our globally connected society, let's think about the young learners who are in our education systems. Are they being well prepared for the world they will live in as adults? Looking ahead then, we need to ask ourselves, what is the future of education? And can we answer this child when they ask the pertinent question, and how will it support my education? It is becoming increasingly urgent for us to design an education that will equip them to live and thrive in an increasingly complex world, a world full of challenges that we just don't know how to solve today. The rate of change is accelerating, and so too are the complexities of the problems to be solved. At the same time, our education systems in general are rooted in models that were successful in the past, for some students, but maybe they too are feeling the stress of the changing work and lives around them. In addition to the increasing connectedness and complexities of our day-to-day lives, there is growing evidence that the 21st century workplace is an ever-changing environment where employers expect their workers to possess a wide range of skills and competences for this global, connected and competitive environment. There have been numerous frameworks developed and much debate about the skills which many feel are required. However, the core set of expected skills include being knowledgeable about the world, thinking outside the box, and being smarter about sourcing information. In addition, having good people skills and an ability to solve problems is valuable. Finally, being able to work as part of a team and ultimately to become a lifelong learner is essential to being able to live and work in this globally connected, complex world. Nothing stands still. The world is very different from what it was, say, 30 or 40 years ago. Think about the changes you yourself have experienced over the last decade or so. Do you get a sense that things are changing at an ever-increasing pace? What if we were to look forward to 30 years from now? Some have done just that and have produced a very interesting, thought-provoking video series. We would like you to watch one of these videos to help you to begin to think about how the world may change and what the lives of our young learners could be like in the near future. The concept of work is changing, with a move away from traditional manufacturing to service-type jobs. Technological automation has already replaced certain tasks and is now beginning to replace tasks in which information can be broken down and digitally translated and outsourced. According to the US Bureau of Labour Statistics, between the years 1995 and 2005, 3 million manufacturing jobs were lost in the US, while during the same period, 17 million service sector jobs were created. Consequently, the demand now and in the future is for non-routine skills such as expert thinking and complex communication. These changes in the workplace and in society at large have implications for schools. There is now a growing need for us as educators to reimagine how we organise teaching, learning and assessment. This is an exciting challenge and one that is being informed by research and by the needs of society. Looking back, the school system and classroom environments we have today were designed for a set purpose and a particular set of conditions that were relevant for that time. For many, life was more predictable and futures had a reasonable degree of certainty. The society that this education system served looked very different to how our society looks today. Back then, the skills our education systems were required to develop were of a particular nature. However, will these type of skills now adequately enable our students to live full and productive lives in a globally connected, complex world? Have our education systems kept pace with the type of skills our society now requires? The reality is that today's classroom has not changed all that much. Sure, we might be using computers today, and smartboards have replaced whiteboards, which replaced chalkboards. But we are still all too often very close to that delivery or conveyor belt experience, with teachers lecturing students on the front of the classroom, delivering content which may not be related to their students' current or future lives, and then testing the content that has been delivered. This may sound judgmental, and many may criticise school systems for not keeping up with the times. However, society at large is still trying to cope with a constant rate of change. It has not had time to reflect on what changes need to be made to education systems in order to ensure future generations can cope effectively with this rapid pace of change and be able to learn constantly throughout a lifetime. For never before have we had to cope with such a rapid, relentless pace of change. This chart maps significant technological changes that have occurred in human cultural evolution, along with a generational timeline of each change. A generation is around 25 to 30 years. There are two things that stand out on the chart. First, what jumps out is how recent some of these changes are. For instance, speech, a capability that distinguishes us from the rest of the animal kingdom, possibly only emerged about 10,000 generations ago. The next big step, agriculture, took another 9,250 generations to develop. Think about how this changed society. Agriculture led to distribution of labour, farming, hunting, taking care of the children and teaching them. Another 250 generations later, and writing emerges, the ability to share our ideas and thoughts beyond oral capacity. Formal recording of events can now occur. Printing is just 24 generations ago. Think of the magnitude of change this technological advance set into motion. The democratization of information and knowledge that was prompted by the print revolution. The societal shifts experienced as a result of this. For example, the American and French revolutions, the Renaissance, the Reformation. Many societies took a long time to adapt to the ideas that were sparked and developed during this time. Indeed, some are still coming to terms with a core tenet, which is that all citizens are created equal and how society should be structured to reflect this truth. Computers emerged just 2 generations ago, and we now live in a world of GPS, YouTube, Facebook, etc. So society is struggling to keep pace with the ramifications of having such technologies available and how they are being used. The second key idea revealed by this chart is that the pace of change is increasing. Newer technologies come along at a faster rate. So society has less time to absorb and understand the impact or implications that using these technologies can have on the structure and fabric of society and how it is organised, and in this case, how education systems can or should be organised as a result. Many would agree that the industrial model of education, which dominated most of the 20th century, is not appropriate for the 21st century. This model of education focused on preparing citizens to work in factories and other establishments that required repetitive work-related tasks. We live in a global technological world, and there is a need to think about how we can change our education systems to better meet the challenging needs of living and working in a 21st century global society. In their white paper, Dancing with Robots, Human Skills for Computerized Work, Frank Levy and Richard Murnane detail the ways in which technology is transforming labour markets and outlines the skills young people will need to survive in the 21st century. You will find this paper on the 21 CLD Course OneNote. Take some time to consider the implications of what this paper outlines. How is the workplace changing in the 21st century? What are the key capabilities employers look for in today's workforce? So to conclude, think about this little girl who is off to school with her backpack on her back. If she could get all the world's current information into one backpack, by the time she graduates, she would need 64 backpacks. At the same time, consider the fact that the amount of information in the world is currently doubling every 2 years. In 17 years, that little girl will probably have graduated and will have chosen a career. We don't know what that career will be because it most likely hasn't yet been invented. She will have access to more information than we can imagine, and she will be operating in cycles of change we most likely couldn't explain. It is clear she will need to know information and have skills. But it is also critical that she will need to be a deep, lifelong learner, continually refreshing her knowledge and skills. These points are the crux of the 21st century skills debate, and we would like to explore them a little deeper with you. In particular, the type of learning environments that are necessary to develop this skill set. In the next lesson, we will consider what we need to think about when designing and developing the type of learning environments that are more suitable for preparing our students to live, work and learn in the globally connected world of the 21st century.